Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to today's deep woo-woo episode with Cosmic Agency. Of course, today we're looking at the astrology from the off-world perspective. With me today is the amazing GOSIA from Cosmic Agency. You can find her at swaru.org, where you can find the transcripts of all of her amazing communications, as well as here on YouTube at Cosmic Agency. GOSIA, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hi, how JC? Hello, Julie. Very nice to meet you.
We're excited to have you on, Gosha. And of course, please also join me in welcoming the amazing Julie from MaisonJupiter.com here on the web and also here on YouTube at Maison Jupiter. Julie, welcome back.
Hi, Gosha. Very nice to meet you. I'm very excited for today to have this very new and different content, I think.
Yes, and it's very new for me as well, I must say, as I have never really done any specific video in detail about astrology or transits and star alignments. And I have never been really personally drawn to the subject. So that's why I never really deepened that with them. So it's exciting because it's new for me as well. I like these shows for which I have to do some preparation because this way they are not boring and they are new. It's something different from normal shows. So thank you, JC, for offering the subject.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And of course, we are always wanting here at Beyond Mystic to trailblaze into new conversations. We don't want echo chambers. And I absolutely love every time you're on Gosha, we always have these amazing conversations and the audience members are always excited. And speaking of the audience members, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today on this live interactive show. Please let us know in the live chat where you're listening from. It's always interesting to see from around the world who's listening into the show. Guys, again, a big welcome. Thank you so much. And as Julie said here, we're going to get into the astrological point of view from the off-world perspective, how perhaps astrology affects other ET races in the beginning of their origins and as they evolve through time, and we can maybe glimpse from that how we perceive our own astrology here on the planet. So that's going to be the conversation for today. But Gosha, I wanted to maybe take a quick maybe 5 minutes here to update the audience members on the team here. Now, you haven't been on the show for a little while this year. We have been a bit super busy with a lot of content. I'm so happy to have you back. But a few people, when they saw the poster, said, hey, let's ask Gosha here for an update in terms of who's still on the team, who might have left, who might have come into the team. Take a few minutes here to explain the situation here with the wonderful cast and crew here of the Taigetan Pleiadians.
Okay, well, just to say it in a few sentences, even for those who don't know who I am at all and what crew we are talking about,
Sure.
Is that we are here going to present. I am going to present the information given to me from the Taigetan and Svarunian crew, who are from the star system in Pleiades, and they are physical people orbiting the Earth in a starship called Toleka, and we have been in a written direct communication with them for 5 years, and have been receiving these endless amounts of information and knowledge on all sorts of topic, and all that you can find on my YouTube channel, Cosmic Agency. In Spanish, Agencia Cósmica. Also in Spanish, Despejando Enigma. That's Robert doing that also in Spanish, who is also in communication. And the website, yes, that's right here, svaru.org, where you can actually read all the transcripts. So you don't have to look at all the videos because that's so much. That's like more than 400 videos already, so that may be overwhelming. On the YouTube channel, there are topics divided by playlists. So if you are interested more in science or navigation or technology or spirituality and metaphysics, it's all divided by topics. So it's like it doesn't hit you all at once because it's also diverse and complex. And then other things are not so complex. But now, the team here that you had on the screen just a while back, well, the main communication here started with Svaro Ferra, who is not around anymore, and then Anneka of Temer, which I don't know, JC, what happened to Anneka? Are you aware?
No, I don't know.
Well, then you'll be pretty sad because Anneka actually died in November the 5th. She passed away. And this is a very complicated subject. I mean, complicated and not so. I made a live explaining what happened to her, but basically she has been under the constant stress and pressure, and she has been more and more sick each time. And now this has caused a lot of controversy because, you know, how can they die? How can they be sick having all this technology and med pods? So I actually have explained this in detail, how this could happen. And we even made just recently 3 videos on the med pod technology. And I have one link here that I can put in the chat.
I actually wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do that in a further video, but I wanted to look at the medical technology and how it's going to be changing here on Earth. And I saw the video you did with Dale Dale and you were on the show maybe 2 years ago. I thought that was interesting. But no, I didn't know about Annika. It's very sad to hear that. Does that have something to do with being immersed in 3D for so long and having that different pressure?
Yes, but she has been under constant pressure and she never took care of her enough. And now, and second of all, she never went into the pod. She refused to go to the med pod because they have this tendency to be able to cure themselves with their mind naturally. And also because knowing that root of her problems was actually emotional and psychological, she knew that the med pod is not going to be able to cure her really on that deep level, because the med pod, and we explained this in the videos, you know, cures everything on this physical level. You know, it can regenerate you, yes, but it's not going to have a long-term effect if you haven't addressed deeper issues. So she was trying to do that, address her deeper issues without the technology, and unfortunately she wasn't able to, and she just, you know, and she was getting worse and worse. Actually, we didn't have contact with her for a while. Like the last time I talked to her was in January 2022. And because she had it, she was instructed to stay away actually from online interactions and just stay away from this work, because she was taking it so seriously. And you know what happened in the last 2 years with the papayas and all that, how seriously she took looking into that. She gave us this very deep report, laboratory report about what's going on there. So she was taking it so personally and to heart everything what was happening on Earth. So, you know, they are very energetical. They are more energetic. They are more energy. So they manifest everything faster than us. And they're not so used to so much negativity like here. So they absorb it much faster and it manifests faster. So that's what happened. But it's sad. But, you know, on the other note, now we have a different team member who is Minerva Svaru, Mari Svaru, and she came about a year ago, but actually just about a month ago or so, she started to make her own videos. She started to want to, you know, just insert something of her own directly, independently. And, you know, she's very young. She's about 15 years old. And she just developed this passion, like all Svarus do, to share and to transmit knowledge. But she wanted to do it in her own way. So she opened this channel and she's transmitting now all that she wants to transmit in both languages, Spanish and English, in the same channel for now. And it's very interesting because she writes it herself and then she makes the video. So it's all like her essence, you know, there is no me there or Robert putting in my own spin on things like adding music or, you know, guiding people towards certain emotion. Here, it's all her. So you can feel her directly through these videos. So I encourage you to do that. So Annika is not around anymore. We talked to Yaski, we talked to Athena Svaru, and pretty much everything else is the same.
And can you also give an update? Well, first, thank you for that, and I'm with you on the heartfelt condolences for Annika. It's, you know, we're all in this war together, and there's casualties everywhere we look, and we're made to understand this more and more, I think, and we're going to see more and more of these casualties as time goes by here. And I think there was a gentleman who we follow who said this was kind of one of the first war in humanity where we would eventually win the war, but only after we won the war would we realize all the casualties of the war. A lot of it is already, as you know, baked in the cake. we don't need to get into that for the topic
Yeah.
today. But going
Just
back,
one more thing.
Yep.
Sorry to
Go
interject.
ahead.
Just one more thing. Just to remind your followers that actually Aneka was with you live
Mhm.
one time, and
Yeah.
she was responding questions, and that was very historical. And that's, she didn't do that actually with anybody else. I think she appeared a few times on our own show, but she never did that on anybody else's show.
Yeah.
So you were the only one who actually had her live with you. If
I'm
anybody
getting
wants to go back,
goosebumps.
I know. I just so
remember.
sad
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about it.
I feel her energy. Yeah, that's very sad. Also, there was a period of time you had mentioned to me, we were trying to organize a meeting and the communication for you had stopped at that moment. And it was funny because I had asked Julie, who's on the screen here, to pull cards on that. And Julie had pulled that, it's just temporary. I don't know if Julie, you remember exactly the card pull. I wasn't prepared to talk about this here today, but do you remember, Julie, this conversation we had and the fact that it was going to be temporary? Is there anything else you can add, or do you want to remember in terms of?
I don't remember exactly the cards that showed up, but I remember I was getting, it was going to be temporary. But also we were picking up on your energy at that time, and I felt like you were very sad because of that. You didn't know what was going on with the communication. So I think before that, I had started to watch a lot of your videos on cosmic agency, and I was like, wow, like I just opened up like a whole new can of worms thanks to JC, who recommended your videos. So so I've been pretty much up to date since this past December.
Okay, very good. And so Gosia, basically why did the communication go offline? It was and why did it come back? Do you want to share any of that with the audience before we get into the subject matter for today? Or can we
it was something to do with the Federation cutting off the communication. It wasn't the first time. Actually, they've been always, meddling here with this project or trying to.
Right.
So that's what I remember, that they were they had other things going on, so it kind of like matched with what was going on, but it was basically that it was the Federation stopping their communication. To be honest, I don't remember like every single detail because I don't know, the time goes fast and the events evolve, and I roll with the new events and I kind of leave behind what happened before. But yeah, that was the Federation.
I think everybody in the chat is happy you're back and the communications are still on, and we're thoroughly enjoying the conversation and all the content you're putting up, including this med pod technology. Yes. I was interested. I watched the first two already, and I still have to watch the third one. But I was interested in this because of the last 2-3 years here. Every human on Earth is realizing that perhaps the medical system is not serving them properly. So we're having this huge transformation in our consciousness about what healthcare really is and how this is going to evolve here perhaps very quickly after we have this mass awakening as to what and how they were part and parcel with this big bad thing that happened over the last couple of years. I guess that's all I'll say. So I'm very excited about that, and I love what Dale was bringing in terms of technology, his ideas, and the respect between the dry pods versus the wet pods. Anyways, guys, if you haven't seen that, go check out Gosia's channel and pay attention there, because I think these are technologies that are going to be coming up very soon here for humans. Gosia, okay, so as we look at this, Julie and I wanted to have this conversation with you because for humans, part of our proceeds coming down here, incarnating on the planet, we have this big kind of veil put upon us as soon as we're born, and we don't remember who we are, where we come from, and where we're going. And so that places a stress on the human being to try to feel those answers. And for a lot of them, we create these religions that give us the answers to who we are, where we're going, and who created us. For a lot of our ancient humans, they looked at the stars to understand perhaps who they were. They built through that archetypes, depending on all of these astrological alignments, to kind of understand how we interact together as humans, but also how we are impacted by these celestial bodies. So I guess my first question, before we get into the three main points for the show here today, do the Taigetans or other ETs maybe that have been in contact with your team, do they go through a similar process in their evolution where on their planet also they incarnate, they forget everything about their soul contract and their soul mission, and they invent mechanisms to try to better understand their evolution and to navigate through time? So did you see this type of thing? Do the Taigetans see this type of things where they also at some point in their histories looked at the stars to understand and plot their trajectory through time?
Wow, that's a very interesting, a very deep question. To be honest, I haven't been talking to them about this aspect so much, but as we always say, sometimes it's because it doesn't come out of us, of our own interest. Well, they do. They don't forget as much as we do. We always say that they forget also because that's what defines a soul, a signal of the consciousness. You must forget in order to maintain yourself as an identity, as a personality. So otherwise, you just be source itself.
Right.
And so they also forget, of course, but they do remember up to 3 of their past lives. So that helps them. That helps them in the current one to kind of, perhaps continue what they wanted to achieve in the past. So they have that link with their past. However, they don't stress about it as much as we do here, I think, on Earth. I've never really heard them talk about this so much in terms of like, they desperately trying to, get hold of their past or understand their past lives or something else beyond the present moment. So I don't.
Well, it does make sense because they still come here preloaded with part of their mission,
Yes.
their full contract, and all that. We come here pretty
Yep.
blind, and we're all grasping at, into the dark here to try to figure things out. Julie, for the sake of the conversation here too, can you just share with the audience members how astrology came to play here in our particular realm here on the planet, why we created it, why there's different types of astrologies, and how they're all trying to aim at the same objective here? Share your understanding of that here with the audience before we go too far.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what we were saying previously that personally, I think it's because your soul might be trying to express something while you're not necessarily spiritually awakened, let's say on Earth when you incarnate. So you feel a discomfort, maybe a resistance, because you feel like there's something else, but you can't really quite put your finger on it. So I feel like your soul is kind of yelling at you to be able to find, let's say, some tips, some kind of messages from the outside to help you understand that you're a spiritual being. So to me, it's kind of why maybe we would feel more pressure to get those answers, to awaken, to go on a path of awakening, while maybe they're already let's say they already acknowledge the fact that they're spiritual beings incarnated in a spiritual, let's say, a physical body.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, well, as per astrology, my understanding is that, well, first of all, I'm not sure if humans really discovered astrology or if they had, let's say, ET sort of teachers. So I'm not sure. So I'm guessing we're going to talk about that later on. But my understanding of it is that from our viewpoint on Earth, we're looking at everything in the sky. So stars, other solar systems, planets in our solar system, and we're trying to find patterns which first of all can lead us to structure our time. So first thing is that's very important, I think, because other traditions before us, like older humans, used to, let's say, start the year with the equinox, and then we have the solstice, so they could measure time with those alignments. So that would be the first thing, I think, why astrology was so important back then. And because all our calendars change a lot since throughout time. So the only thing that stayed the same is us looking at the stars to have like points and key dates and key alignments. So that would be the first answer. And then the second one, which is more spiritual for me, is that we say as above, so below. So everything that's going on in the macro cosmos also happens in the micro, so inside of us. So I feel like that's the other reason why we looked at planets and stars in order to find answers. meaning that we structured the constellations like stars we were looking at in the sky, and we kind of grouped them into what we call constellations. So that's totally arbitrary. So these are the constellations that, let's say, humans or ETs decided we would structure into archetypes and constellations. So we took those stars, and they're not necessarily close to each other, those stars. It's just from the viewpoint on Earth, we decided, let's say, to put 20 stars together and call it the Ram constellation. So that would be Aries in astrology. So that's very, how can we say that, subjective to Earth perception. So we would then give some sort of tones to those archetypes and learn how to how, let's say, some patterns will lead to different sort of answers. Like an eclipse, for example, often brought like very important karmic changes to Earth. So that would lead to, let's say, studying the patterns and looking at those archetypes to also give a type of flavor to a human born on a certain date, because that planet would be more prominent in their astrology. So therefore they would be, let's say, more fiery because they got a prominent Mars in their astrology. And also looking at the transits to kind of know what energies are around us as a collective. Oh, JC, you're muted.
Oh, hold on, because I had an echo. I wanted to make sure everybody can hear you okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for the comments in the live chat about your awakening process and how astrology helped you and all of that. But I'm curious, Gosha, let's get to point number one here. Astrology in general, like Julie just mentioned here, of course, we have our own astrology here on Earth because we have our very unique perspective at how we look at the skies and how we've pulled that all together for these archetypes. But I'm curious, in general, from the Taigetan point of view, what did they think about the astrology? The whole business of being born on a certain date and how perhaps an astrological body would influence you more and how that maybe pertains to the evolution of your soul on this planet. Like, what's their overall view on all of this? From their perspective, of course, from the Pleiades.
Yes. Thank you very much, Julie, for your explanation as well. And we will talk about this a little bit further, how they actually, yes, how the ETs had their involvement teaching people here on Earth about astrology. Yes. So, okay, this is going to be maybe interesting for you, or perhaps not. Perhaps you already have an idea that this is how it is. But for them, and especially for Taigetans, looking at this whole subject of how the stars and alignments influence you or not, depending on your date of birth, is actually reverse for them. As many things, now you understand. I'll explain this.
Okay.
Many things, as they always say, many things human have it reverse, and this is like one of these things. Okay, so they say astrology is an energetic dynamic in the cosmos. It is a relationship between frequencies propagated as waves in the ether, like gravity, that are those that have the appropriate harmonic to form what is a person or point of attention consciousness. I read that. Now, so it's not that the stars influence the person. It's not that. It's the person is the energetic conjunction of all the stars, near and far. So the stars and their alignments and their position are only an indication of what the person in question is. It's like a mark of the person. So it's like, it's the other way around. It's not that the stars influence the person. They just give the clue of what the person is like. They are not controlling the person. And you understand this as I keep explaining this. They are not controlling the person. The person is always in control, and they are the way they are. They are the way they are. They have the reason how they are, depending on their past lives, shaping their perceptions. For example, because every souls, as they continue throughout different past lives, they grow and they become a specific blueprint. They have a specific frequency and a mark, and that's what that person is. So for them, they don't have this deterministic stance on the astrology. This is very human. It's a human tendency to always believe that there is something on the outside that determines how they are. But for them, it's the other way around. It's the person that matters. It's the person that creates, and then that alignment that under which you are born is a representation of how you are. And bear with me, I will explain this as I go, because it's not that easy for me to explain this either. As you know, it's not my expertise here. So as they explain, the stars are just more people. They are like consciousness, points or nodes of the ether. In other words, the astrology could be explained as peepology. In a way, like, for example, our friends, in a groups of friends that we have and we choose, it could be said that they influence you, how you are, right? Okay, that's one aspect. But on the other hand, tell me who you hang out with, and I will tell you who and what you are. And that's how they perceive it. The arrangement and the alignment of the stars, for example, the day you were born, it indicates who you are. Not that that arrangement of the stars influences who you are. It's not deterministic. So here I'm asking, I had this conversation with Yaski just a few days ago, so I'm still like chewing on this myself. And she said, I asked, so, okay, so souls go around and choose to be born on a specific day because the astral alignments fit into who they are, then to indicate to myself and to others what I'm like. So she says, it's not as in choose, more like the energy and your frequency dictates that you are a match to that specific date.
They galvanize to the frequency.
Well, yes. As with everything else, you are a frequency match to that date and that astrological sign and to everything that goes with it. Yeah. And here I also asked, okay, you gave this example of people, your group of friends, that who you're hanging out with, that's going to be an indication of who you are. What that means that the stars or astrals have personalities, or how does it relate to the personality association? How do the astrals relate to our personalities in the first place? So she says, you must first make a sort of map where you relate one personality trait to that specific star configuration. And that is what zodiac signs are for. They are basic personality traits associated to planets and their transit through stellar constellations. And now, how were those associations done? Because that's very ancient, because it has to be very ancient. This is a very ancient art. So how was it done? She said, through observation. Exactly like they were observing, for example, in the ancient times, a climate change during a year, or development of seasons. Or, for example, were they observing when the river Nile was overflooding, creating at that time a specific, fertile soil that was ready for growing crops. So with the stars, she says, when people have a certain group of personality traits, they can associate them using that person's date of birth with the position of the stars and planets above. And yes, that was done in the ancient times. It was a very slow recollection of data, where the priests and all these ET astro observers, along with the human astro observers, were writing down those associations throughout the ages. And they were helped by the off-world people who were teaching them how to record that data. So let me continue, because I'm like going through this conversation that I had with her, which, by the way, will be made into the video as well after this. So I'm here asking, like, how does my soul know about these associations to be born on a specific date, right? Because it says that arrangement of stars is a match to what I am. But how does the soul know that and knows those associations? If I am brave, I'm supposed to be born on that specific date because it reflects who I am. How does this work? So she says it's not a case of knowing as such. It's again a case of simply what a soul is. So, for example, Yaski, she's a Pisces. So she says, Pisces doesn't define me. I hold a frequency of Pisces. So it's the other way around. But personality traits are a frequency. And as a frequency, they tend to go with what is a match to it. And that frequency match will concur with the frequency of a zodiac sign. And again, she said, Pisces doesn't define me. I hold a frequency of a Pisces. So it's a bit around the other way around, like how we perceive it. And here she's explaining, again, how the soul becomes this specific mark or a blueprint or frequency because of its own soul journeys, and it collects the thoughts and the experiences throughout different lifetimes. It recollects all these different ideas and emotions and feelings, consciously and non-consciously, unconsciously, and this creates like a frequency pattern, like a blueprint of a soul. So stars and planets, because they are also consciousnesses, it's peopology, not astrology, as they said, they also have those frequency patterns. So a soul will be born where it corresponds. So, for example, she said, if a Pisces holds a frequency of 70.032 and the planetary and stellar frequency of a certain date is of 70.032 or close enough, then that soul will be born where those stellar alignments occur, just naturally. It's just what it is. So here I also ask, like, okay, but why does the star and planets have to do with this, and not, for example, arrangement of anything else that is alive, trees, rabbits on that day? You know,
Right.
Why not that? Why astros? Why planets and stars? And this is what she said. Yes, all rabbits, plants, rocks, dogs and cats and candy bars are also affecting our frequency. It's just that stars can be traced and mapped, and rabbits are harder to track. And stars and planets are big things in space that hold a lot of gravity, consciousness, gravity, therefore of consciousness. So of course it will tend to influence, but not in a deterministic way, people and souls a lot more than bunnies. And note something, and this is very interesting here. It's kind of, with this you understand even better. She says it's the same principle of a starship jumping into hyperspace, and then it will go where it is a frequency match, right? We talked about this in the navigation. So if you envelop that starship with the engines, whatever, with a specific frequency address, it just manifests there. So it's the same here. If your soul as a blueprint, as a frequency pattern, has a specific number, it will just manifest in that specific time and date in space, according to the frequency pattern of all the planets and astros around you. So it's not that you are randomly born on a specific day, let's say 20th of December, and then, oh my God, what are the planets doing at this time? Let's see how it's going to affect me. No, you were born on that day because how you are and how you reflect that star arrangement in the first place. So it's the other way around. And here, and just a few more comments, and then I will give it to you. She also said, because, okay, I understand that every frequency blueprint soul has specific number over, okay, but it always changes, right, throughout the life. So the blueprint we had when we were born is different than 40 years ago. So I was asking, is that still influencing, not in a deterministic way, us determining how we are even 30 years later? Well, and she said this. You hold that frequency very much so during your lifetime. Yes, general default frequency, but lifetimes are meant to be evolving. So yes, it does change as you go depending on what you do. It doesn't work in a deterministic way. So you can always change your personality and your features and your traits. And here she says, it may take a lot of work because you are working against your powerful unconscious, but you can. And the last sentence from her here, she says, of course, if you didn't change at all, then it would be a waste of incarnation.
Right. Okay.
Wow.
You just blew our mind there. Okay. I have 3 or 4 notes, but before I bring my stuff into this.
Yeah, and I want to comment on that too. Yeah.
Yes, please comment.
Okay. Go ahead, Julie. You have the floor here, and I'll see if I can chime in there. But first, just so you know, I wanted to bring this up. The Stellar Navigation series on GOSIA's YouTube channel. Really go check that out here. This is where I think I spent the most time when I first discovered GOSIA, was to watch that series. It really spoke to me, and I understood this whole idea of going through space, going through time, not with a map, but with actual frequencies. And it was a question of being able to manipulate those frequencies to bring you to these different points in time, space, time. It was fascinating series. I do recommend the audience go check that out. And also, Doreen Dautin here on YouTube. She's I don't know how to explain her, but she's just fascinating. I've been watching her for years also. But she mentioned this. This is a 4-year-old video, maybe 6-year-old video. She talked about how all the clerics, the priests, they have it all wrong with respect to astrology. And she's kind of describing what GOSIA is saying. And she says, this is an old Talmudian text, but it's not translated well in today's religion. And she's going on and on about all this stuff. And it's now it's all coming together as GOSIA is presenting all of this. So I just wanted to go, guys, check out Doreen Dautin also. She does touch on these subject matters, and she's very fascinating the way she describes her knowledge. Okay. Having said that, Julie, your first reactions to all of this, let's try to decode.
Yeah. First of all, I was so happy to hear what you just said, GOSIA, because it's exactly the way I've always viewed astrology, as being like a moving blueprint, let's say, something that gives you enough space for creation, for evolving, which is exactly what we call evolutionary astrology here on Earth. So okay, I'm going to say that right one time. Evolutionary, yes, astrology. Okay. Is based on, yes, the blueprint that you hold on your birth time, so your birth chart, but it has enough, let's say, moving archetypes for you to evolve, because one archetype, so let's say the Pisces archetype, has a let's say a lower frequency manifestation and a higher frequency manifestation and everything in between. So it also depends on, in my opinion, the frequency in this same archetype. So for me, it's exactly what you said. You're going to resonate with something, and it's not like the astrology defines your future or who you will be. It's a moving evolutionary blueprint. So first of all, I just wanted to say that I very much agree with what your team, was it Yadzi who said that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Yadzi. Okay. And second, I just wanted to bring something, because I feel like a lot of people, when we talk about astrology, define it as what we call the pop astrology here. So only the sun sign astrology. So they're like, let's say you're a Pisces, I'm a Virgo, JC's an Aries. So you're like one archetype out of the 12, and that's it. So that's not complete astrology. And I'm just going to bring my chart here just to add a visual to what I want to say. Like real, let's say, astrology is keeping in mind that you have the 12 archetypes within you. And those are going to be more activated than others. So let's say this is your birth chart, and those are the placement of the planets at the moment you were born. That's the birth chart for today, but let's just take that as an example. So let's say, for example, you have 3 planets in Aquarius. That would mean that Aquarius would be a more prominent archetype in your astrology. So you would resonate as a soul maybe more with Aquarian themes than others. But you have the 12 archetypes because you're a fractal of source. So you're already holding all the potential archetypes in astrology, and you decide which one you want to develop more. But some are going to be easiest for you to access if you have, let's say, a lot of activation in Aquarius. So that's going to be an archetype easier for you to access than maybe, let's say, Libra, where you have no planets in. So I just wanted to add that astrology is sometimes a lot more complete than what people think, because what's popular about astrology is your sun sign. So if you're a Pisces, it means your sun, the sun was transiting the constellation of Pisces at the moment you were born. But that would be more of, let's say, trying to sum up astrology way too much, in my opinion. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, very good. Something else I wanted to add there is the mirror effect. Now, a lot of people are suggesting right now that the way the overlay of energies, whether you want to talk about the arcanic or archonic overlays on the planet, we are looking at a mirror. And in some cases, we're attributing looking at the stars as a mirror of us. But what Yaz is saying here and what Gosia is saying is, no. We are the mirror of the stars. But at any rate, looking at it and having this conversation and this bigger understanding, of course, brings you to all of these keys, the keys of evolution. As Yaz just said, if you don't evolve in this incarnation and you don't change your pattern for your highest good and for your highest evolution, it's a waste of this incarnation. I'm absolutely in love with this conversation. It's really, really cool. And yes, everybody in the chat is saying, oh my God, this is so fascinating. Yeah, I agree. Okay, a few people were asking also, who was that other lady I brought up? Doreen Dautin. Let me see if I can bring up the share screen for you guys here. And I'll bring the link back down as well.
And I kind of have a sorry, JC, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I kind of have an additional question.
Hold on. Okay, so guys, the link to Doreen is in the live chat now if you want to go check that out. Thank you, everybody, for asking me for the link. Okay, Julie, back to you.
So it kind of makes me wonder, Gosia, if, because let's say our birth chart would be, let's say, the frequency resonance of our soul incarnated in this incarnation. So do you think, based on what you just said, that we would kind of have a similar birth chart throughout our incarnations? Because if, let's say, our soul, let's say, resonates with Aries, for example, so we're born in Aries and we have a lot of activation in the Aries archetype. So do you think that, let's say, you would have like a big fire energy, a big Aries energy throughout your incarnations?
From what Yaski said, I think that base frequency would be there, because just as she said, that main frequency configuration will be there very much so during our lifetime, but we are evolving. So I don't know to what degree that base frequency will be evolving and becoming, variant throughout our life. I'm not sure. That's a question for Yaski. I will have to ask that.
Okay, maybe we'll do a part 2 of all this. Clearly, it's fascinating. A lot of people in the chat are saying, oh my God, we really love this conversation. I do as well.
Because I kind of always was wondering if we would have a different personality in other lifetimes. Or is it just like, you know what I mean? Like, is your soul really like a specific personality and specific personality traits throughout your incarnations? And that's kind of, well,
if you read Thinking and Destiny by Percival, he talks about the human being 3 parts: the knower, the thinker, and then the doer. And within the doer, there's 12 doers. So to answer your question, Julie, there too, I'm curious also in those 12 doers that you have in these reincarnation loops, if they're always the same base template with the flavor of the month or the flavor of the dozen, for example, between the 6 female and the 6 males, or if in fact, every time you come in, you have a completely different frequency base. Your thoughts on that? Gosia, before we go to the next point, do you think that could be the case?
I think there is a certain frequency base that is the same. For example, in all Svarus that you see, all these different variants and versions of themselves, there is a specific, base frequency there, base essence, and I can even feel it talking to them. When I talk to Svaru 9 or Svaru 9 or Yaski, they have the same kind of there's something very similar to them. Also, although they have different personalities. So I think that the base frequency, the base essence would be there. And then on top of that, based on different experiences that each of these variants has, different conclusions will be drawn, what they want for themselves for the next life, if they want to have a more peaceful existence next time. So that will grow into a different personality. But their way of expressing, for example, the way they write is very similar between all these different Svarus. So I think the essence, the foundation, your core is still there, the same.
Yeah, the I am that I am, it resonates throughout. Okay, really, really fascinating. Julie, before we go too far, a lot of people are interested in the conversation here, and they might want to figure out a little bit more here. They probably read the newspapers or they see their sun sign as you're talking about. There's much more involved in that. Explain to them what you have here on maisonjupiter.com in terms of getting their own personalized birth charts done.
Yeah, so the personalized birth chart that we offer on the website is basically like an art print of your own blueprint for your incarnation on Earth. So the placement of the planets and stars that you're going to be able to refer to for all the astrology alignments that are going on. And also it's a great self-knowing tool. So it comes with a 15 to 20 pages report explaining some of your most prominent alignments and the color of your choice. That's a digital product. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, you can check it out at maisonjupiter.com. And I think if you use BeyondMystic, one word, Julie, that's a coupon code, 10% off there. Okay.
Yes. JC,
yes.
One more thing I just want to add to the question that you had, because a thought popped in my head about if we maintain the same frequency toward the next life, you have the same personality. For example, I will use myself as an example. I am in immersion and I don't remember anything. And apparently, the memory also holds, a certain frequency, or, if I remembered who I was in my past life, it would determine something about me, right? But in fact, even without the memory, they told me that my personality is the same as there before I got immersed. So my values and the essence got transferred into GOSIA from my 5D self before the immersion, which could be called like a past life experience because I have no memory of that. So for me, from here, it's like a past life, even though it's parallel. So your values and your essence carries through, even when you are immersed and you don't remember anything from before. So I think something similar happens with your next life. Your essence, your blueprint carries through, your values, your main core values. Yeah, that's that.
Well, in the book, Thinking in Destiny, and a lot of authors have touched into this too, they talk about this period of time, the deep sleep between each incarnation, or what some other people have called the metempsychosis. We go through and basically boil down all of the karma from that previous life into one drop, and that is transferred over to your next incarnation. It comes out in terms of intuition, deep knowing, and all of these things. Yes. So there is a process there, and I'm curious to see if that perhaps comes with the DNA, that the DNA is really the thing that propels you through time and through all of these activations. But that's a whole other show. But maybe we'll do a whole show on DNA, GOSIA, at some point here. That would be fascinating as well. Okay. Wow.
Well, if I can add, sorry, Jesse. Sorry for getting you the whole time. Okay. I was just going to say that would make sense because let's say if it's pre-decided what kind of mission you're going to have, if you're like a star seed and you're descending from 5D to 3D in this incarnation because you have a specific mission for helping the awakening of consciousness, that would make sense that you would have a similar type of gifts and personality because the mission would be attributed to you specifically because maybe you're more let's say, able because of your gifts and your specific traits to carry on this mission.
Yeah, predisposition with the current skill sets and all that, and the memories and all that. Yeah, I love it. Okay. Sharon says, hey, I just received my birth chart from Julie. It's beautiful. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that.
You, Sharon.
And Jenny Alicia, one of our longtime subscribers. I love this conversation. Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, me too. I'm having so much fun.
7 minutes passed already. Oh my gosh. And
I know it's going fast. We have 2 more topics to discuss.
And huge topics.
We're having so much fun. Okay. Well, first of all, GOSIA, let us know if I know it's a little bit later in your time zone there too. We'll do as much as we can, but if you feel the energy is waiting,
no. For me, don't worry about it. No.
Okay.
For me, I go to sleep very late. Don't worry about it.
Okay, very good. Okay, so the next point for today's conversation, and I mean, we could do this forever, but Pluto, the esoteric meaning behind Pluto. So I know you've been in conversation with your team also. Let's start looking at that, and then we'll bridge in from our perspective here in human astrology what that means for us, and then we'll have a conversation as to perhaps how the current alignments for this year might spell changes for the population as a whole. So let's start with you, GOSIA, while you're on the screen.
Thank you. Yes, you wanted to talk about Pluto entering Aquarius. You sent me this question about this transit that's going to happen from March 2023 to 2044. And you were asking me about this transit. So I think it's important to mention about Pluto itself and about its esoteric meaning. Because actually, some time ago, Svarova was talking about, all the planets in the solar system, and I'm still in the process of doing that solar system saga series where I describe every planet, and I haven't actually done Pluto yet, and that's going to be next in line
Oh,
next
so
to
cool.
Neptune. So I'm going to make these two videos. First, I'm going to make about Pluto, and then I'm going to combine it with this Pluto transit. So it's like it aligned perfectly. Yeah.
Divine timing, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's important to talk about the Pluto and its esoteric meaning to understand more about this transit. So as you know, Pluto has been degraded by the human science from its status as a planet. They just downgraded it to a dwarf planet status. And here Yaski is explaining to us, and before Svaru Opera also a few years ago, that the definitions of planets for humans differ from those of the Federation. So Pluto actually, for the stellar races, for the federations, and on the star charts of virtually all star races, is still a planet. It is not a dwarf planet or a planetoid or something else.
And I just want to add that for astrologers, it never changed. It was a very important planet, even for astrologers.
And it is very dangerous planet for the Cabal, and I will explain why they degraded that.
Exactly.
It was for esoteric reasons. My God, that was nothing for because astrophysical reasons. There's no justification, as she said, for downgrading Pluto from an astrophysical aspect or stance. It has been demoted for esoteric reasons. And here you have to understand that the Cabal functions very much entirely, almost esoterically. Everything is astrological for them, but it's different for us on the low level. Basically what we see as the horoscopes and all that's like basically rubbish, what they said to us. But then on the higher level, the elites, they use very much so the astrology, but that level of astrology is not explained to people or is not given to the public, because it's not something that public is supposed to have. So for the Cabal, everything is astrological, everything is esoteric, but that astrological representation doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the actual object, like floating in space. Like, for example, Saturn. The physiological aspect is that it has its portals, and there are some negative portals and bases on the Saturn. But basically, that's that. And in case of a Pluto, the only physical thing there they have a large federation base there. But it's not the only physical thing. So other than that, it's about the energetic representation of that planet. So, okay, 1 second, please. So as she explained, the billionaires and royalties and all that, they use and believe in that higher level of astrology, and they use it all the time. But like I said, they don't. Sorry, I'm getting confused because I'm reading from the text, and at the same time, I have my own thoughts interfering. So,
Take your
okay.
time.
So they degraded the Pluto to that status because they are basically afraid of it and what it represents, the energy. Because in their astrological worlds, Pluto represents an energy of change, destruction of old paradigms, the exposure of old lies, the dissolution of corruption, and all that. Basically, everything they stand for. So the Pluto energy also represents the god Shiva, as they explain. But here you have to understand that they are kind of explaining this from our point of view. What it means to the deep esoteric circles. So the god Shiva, representing Pluto, is a destroyer of worlds, but not as a negative destroyer. It is their world destroyer. So it's not negative, it's just transmutation. It destroys their world, destruction of the Cabal, of mind control over humanity. And that's why they have demoted Pluto to a planetoid. So it doesn't have, according to their vision, so much influence over people. Basically, it's their enemy. It's their enemy, esoterically speaking. It signifies, it signifies the act of cleansing the self and the unconscious, removing the veil from the collective eyes, collectively and individually. It transcends the false, anything that is false. As I said, exposure of the lies and the corruption. It also represents the inner world and letting go of emotional attachments that anchor in absolute destructive concepts, detachments from old karmas, release of old attachments, not depending on old ideas. And here, also the fun fact on the side is why Pluto is related to Shiva, because actually Shiva did all that. He was a real person, as they explained to us. He was, according to the Federation archives, he was an Andromedan. That's why he's painted blue, because Andromedans are blue. So that's why he is related to all that, because that's what he did. He was very revolutionary. And that's why Pluto has that energy, and that's why they're afraid of it. And that's why they denoted it to the status of a lesser planet. But it's still a planet according to the stellar races. So I'll stop here for now for comments.
Wow.
Okay. Yes, a few people are like, the heads just explode. But you know how, for example, here on mainstream news, we're not seeing the riots that are happening in Paris right now, and we're not seeing what happened in Brazil, because of course that can't happen and we can't have a conversation about it. Same thing with Pluto. We cannot have a conversation about how absolutely impactful and dangerous it is, as you say here, to the cabal or the bad guys. That's really interesting. Julie, you're nodding your head through all out of this. What do you want to share there to add to the conversation?
It's crazy because I just had a conversation, I think it was during our staff retreat in December, with Meg, our other astrologer on Maison Jupiter, and we were both sharing that we thought Pluto got demoted because they were scared of it. So we had this intuition. We didn't know for sure it was the case, but we were like, because in astrology, Pluto is such an important archetype for, let's say, revolution. And on the higher frequency, Pluto's a big healer. It's a big healing energy because it transcends all that is fake, all that is, let's say, superficial, because Pluto really likes to dig deep, research, do the shadow work, and then come out as, let's say, Phoenix rising from the ashes. So it's like such a profound archetype that we were just discussing, that our intuition was telling us that it was... let's say they had something behind this this action. They had something in mind. So it's a good confirmation.
Okay.
I'm glad. Okay. I'm glad that you felt that, and that this is helping to confirm that.
Okay,
yeah.
So hold on a second here too. A few people are asking, okay, when's the next show? Okay, so this is new, guys, also on Beyond Mystic now. Every week we'll have the Beyond Astro. These are mini segments here on astrology with Meg, of course, our new astrologer on the team. So Wednesday here, January 25 at noon, will be the third edition of this one here. So make sure to go check that out. And also, Julie, this is the second monthly show here you're producing with Meg. Explain this one here and how this is a lead up also to, of course, Valentine's, which brings up a whole other conversation. But this whole idea of compatibility in relationship through astrology, what's going to be in this decode here for the audience members on February 1st?
Yeah, because it's so close to Valentine's Day, we really wanted to talk about more of a relationship type of astrology. So we're transcending, let's say, all the sun sign astrology. I'm a Virgo, you're a Leo, are we compatible? We're transcending that because we're trying to bring it to a more evolutionary level, let's say. So we're going to look at alignments and, let's say, frequency match in terms of archetypal astrology. So very looking forward to that one.
Okay, I'm excited to see that too, guys. Just go and add this to your schedule. Julie, before we go too far on this Pluto in Aquarius, you provided me a chart. We did kind of talk about this in the last Divine Feminine Oracle show, I believe. For the sake of this conversation here, just lay down some track here as to how we are perceiving Pluto in this transit and how that perhaps spells big changes for humanity. We're already actually seeing a lot of those changes and the breakdowns right now. If you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear what's happening here on the planet, share this with the audience members a little bit.
So starting in March, Pluto will leave the sign of Capricorn. So Capricorn is the archetype for big corporations, governments, all big structures that are within our society. So Pluto is kind of destroying and cleaning what no longer aligns with our future, and reveals the corruption. And when it leaves a sign, it's like this destruction is coming to a very important key point and an end. So Pluto is leaving Capricorn. So it kind of talks about the destruction of top-down structures, including governments and big corporations, using the old pyramidal model. So when Pluto's leaving a sign, we notice that it almost always ushers in a, let's say, crisis, some kind of crisis in society. So we're changing the way we view society, and society is going to be structured. So Pluto leaving Capricorn and entering Aquarius as of March is kind of a big deal, because Aquarius is kind of the energy we're moving towards with the age of Aquarius that we're kind of, we begin already. But we're still creating this new age of Aquarius, which is interconnectivity between all the living beings. That's Aquarius. So we're no longer in a pyramidal model where all the people at the top of the pyramid are getting all the kudos, and everybody at the bottom is kind of living in poverty and being enslaved. So that was, let's say, the lower frequency of Capricorn archetype, and we're moving into Aquarius, which is, let's say, more an equal exchange between all the living organisms, peer-to-peer exchanges. So that's also talking about cryptocurrencies and a lot of stuff that's going to change, I believe, our society. So Aquarius in astrology
Can you just hold that thought for a second before I
Sure.
forget, Julie? GOSIA, you had mentioned this, I believe, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, with one of your conversations, and I think you've since changed the term. But I remember something about we as humans would be moving into a new governance, organic governance system for humanity, contrary to what we have now, the pyramidal structure that Julie's talking about. But I think they had mentioned something about a holographic society. That was one of the first. Holistic, yeah. Original holographic to holistic, yeah. So guys, do go check out those videos also on GOSIA's channel. Fascinating, and it's basically bringing in that knowledge and helping humanity also kind of make that their own here as we try to make our way here into this new organic human society here that we're trying to build for ourselves outside of this matrix of control. So go check out GOSIA on that. Julie, back to you. Sorry to interrupt. I just needed to bring that in. Go ahead.
No problem. And because Pluto has the longest, let's say, orb of influence in our solar system, it deals with more of big society changes on a big mass level. So that's why Pluto is so important also, also with the archetype. And so Pluto moving in Aquarius in astrology talks about energy healing. It talks about technology. It talks about knowledge. It talks about also social medias, internet, so everything that's going to connect us even more and allow us to have even more knowledge. So Pluto first in Aquarius, if we listen to astrology, what the patterns have been telling us from the past transits of Pluto. First of all, Pluto entering a new sign kind of reveals the corruption about an archetype. So Pluto in Aquarius means we're going to learn about the corruption about AI, which is Aquarius, about technology. So technology more used for further control of population, like digital ID and stuff. The censorship on internet, censorship on social media, freedom of speech issues. Also the corruption within cryptos. Within science, it's all Aquarius themes. And also we could learn about DNA manipulation, I believe, because...
DNA manipulation? Do you mean the injectables in the last 2 years? Anyways, keep
Yeah.
going. Don't answer that, just keep going.
Yeah, you're right, totally, JC. Like, I believe that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
So if we look at the past transits of Pluto, it could reveal many more other attempts to further control populations, but also bring more awareness to the public for us in order to make better decisions, because we're talking about this free will throughout astrology. So having this pattern made available to you allows you to gain awareness and to make different choices as an individual, but also as a collective. So we could choose, and I hope we will, to manifest a more sovereign expression of the Aquarian archetype, which could also talk about big revolution. That's Aquarius, that's societal revolutions, and also rebelling. Rebelling is both an archetype of Aquarius and of Pluto, Pluto is also a kind of rebellious planet. Yeah. So
Okay, hold on.
I think there's a lot there.
There's a lot there, guys. You can take a screenshot of this here too, and then we can have more conversations. Of course, tune in to the next Divine Feminine Oracle show, as well as the Deep Astro Decodes with Julie and Meg here on Maison Jupiter to find out more. A couple of things. First of all, Matthias was in the chat. Thank you so much, Matthias. This is the link, of course, swaru.org. And if you type in the search box there, Julie, I'm just going to mute you for a second here. If you type in holistic there, you'll find the conversation I was referring to there. Also, I wanted to bring this up to your attention. This was the last show we did with Anika. And so I just found the poster now. For some reason, I believe that was on my second YouTube channel. So if you guys go look at my Odyssey channel where I had a backup of the second YouTube channel, you'll find this episode. This was April, I think, maybe 2 years ago already.
Yeah.
It goes by really fast. But that leads us into this conversation here too. In the last chart that Julie was talking about there, the last point was the big die-off. And you and I had talked about this, GOSIA, when you were last on the show, about how perhaps a lot of this is already baked in the cake for some of the people who took the papayas. It leads into the report that Anika had done on all of this. How do you see Pluto, and maybe just generally speaking here, 2023, in terms of this big die-off? There is the component of we have souls on this planet right now who are not predisposed to create the new Earth, and they have to leave the stage right now, and they had choices in free will here to leave the stage. So I know we kind of had that conversation in the last show, but explain that right now maybe, and adjust also your understanding here of how Pluto and how we are going to be living at least a version of the big die-off here, as you see at the bottom of the screen. What do you and the team think about this right now? What can you share with the audience?
Okay, well, I talked to Yaski about these several points, about these different questions that you sent me. Like, for example, okay, I'll mention that a die-off. However, I don't have that much actually on that specific question. I will just go back to the first question that you sent me, and you were talking about the Great Reset, how this transit will, it's like supposed to unleash all the dirt about the Great Reset. That's what you said in your question. So what they said here, what Yaski said, is that, as I said, Kabbalah is very afraid of Shiva and Pluto and its energy. And everything here, Julie, you were mentioning about the influence of the Pluto, yes. But again, she's stressing the point that it's not a direct influence as something literal. And she here explains, for stellar races, especially for Targetans, the stellar objects don't influence anyone in the way they say on Earth. What is going on in the stars is a reflection of what is going on. Mm-hmm. So it's the other way around, as we perceive it, as it was explained in the beginning. So here she mentions that, the transition between the era of Pisces and the era of Aquarius was supposed to be around 2012 to about now. And she says it may be even overdue. So it's something that's supposed to bring a lot of changes and coming off the so-called new Earth. So she's saying, of course, the Kabbalah starts to shiver because you have Pluto entering Aquarius. It's just too much for them going on. They fear all this. Now, here I was asking, okay, but is this really true? Is this how it is? Or is it something they believe? Just because they fear that doesn't mean there isn't a truth or validity to that. So she says, hear this, and also she comments on how they perceive this transit, if actually it means anything to them, because it's different for the humanity, different for them, perhaps. So I said, is it something, is there a validity and truth to this, or any sustenance, or is it something they fear because they fear it? And she says, it's important, this transit is important because they see it. And it is important because just everyone in the know on Earth sees it that way. For us, she says, we know stellar objects are great masses of consciousness, and we are all connected through the ether. So what they do is a reflection of who we are. and we also affect them. And then she says this, in general, this transit is seen as a progression in the stellar date and map, meaning the point in time and space where stellar objects were in that exact position. So it helps coordinate between stellar races. They use that to coordinate between among themselves. It helps set dates for just about anything, like a meeting somewhere, because as you know, they don't use time and clocks the same way as we do at all. So they coordinate according to these different changes and astrological changes and all that. So she says, it helps set dates for just about anything, like a meeting somewhere. It is the best thing we have that even looks like a common clock, because, as I've said before, time is very relative and changes a lot from planet to planet, location to location. Other than above, we don't give it any further meaning, but that's for themselves, in their races. Now, I have also her response on a DNA upgrades, because it was also mentioned that it's linked to the new technologies and Pluto, to healing modalities. You were asking about the DNA. I don't know if you want me to go into that right now.
Okay, hold on just a second here. Yeah, we have a few more questions to go in there. I just wanted to bring this up also because you mentioned it, Gosha. Now, it's interesting for the audience members to listen to all of this, because Shiva was the statue that was unveiled at CERN. And so you've had discussions with them also on CERN, what perhaps they're trying to do, what they're trying to attempt. Do you remember those? Do you want to just interject that here in the conversation for the audience members, or is this perhaps for
I really don't remember
show?
the details on this. It was when we were making the video on portals and artificial portals. So if you want to make that, look that video up on artificial portals. I don't remember much right now.
Well, okay, so I'm going to bring up this piece of information here just so I don't forget.
I forget so much. It's just so
I know.
It's just too much information.
I absolutely know. Okay, guys, if you go check out Cliff High's, again, everything is so synchronistic. As we're having this conversation, Cliff High is putting this out in the field, the hypercode part 1 and part 2. And what he's explaining in there is what Gosha just said, that for the bad guys, the Shiva character is a problem. Pluto is also a problem. And what they're, in his point of view here, and this is the research from Cliff High, so I'm just bringing that into the conversation. What he's suggesting here, I'll see if I can bring up a slide from the conversation, is that what they're attempting to do with CERN and other technologies is to hack into that hypercode or that source code, so to extricate themselves from the results of the Shiva or the Pluto, so that they can continue maintaining their power here on Earth, and perhaps even strengthen it. So fascinating conversation. It kind of ties in with stuff that Gosha and I have done in the past, but please do go check out this particular video, the hypercode Woo, to get a little bit more details on that.
All I remember about that CERN operation was that they are trying to make bigger and bigger portals in order to move a huge amount of equipment and staff out of Earth, because that's the only way the regressive can actually travel through portals.
Right. So there was the idea of them getting backup in some sense here, reinforcement, and also extricating people here that might be in danger. So that was part of the conversation. But I thought this Cliff High thing was interesting too, in terms of perhaps hacking the code of this particular existence and maybe absolving themselves somehow of some of these frequencies and energies that are indeed spelling their disaster here. We're moving into this new age, and everything that was born of the previous age by design here no longer resonate in this new frequency, so they must crumble. And so that's what they're trying to prevent, of course. Wow, learn something in every show. Thank you, JC. I appreciate that. Okay, Julie, we had 3 or 4 more questions with respect to Pluto here. Do you want to just pick one or two? See which one might be more of interest to the audience members, and see if, first of all, Gosha had answers from her team on that, and we'll go one by one here with the list that you have. Perhaps just go with the next one here. Go ahead.
I'll just start with what Gosha was about to respond to. So, because Pluto is a big healing archetype. So, and also Pluto is in astrology is related to DNA also. And Aquarius talks about kind of an energy upgrade. So when I saw this transit coming up and I looked at your MedPod series, GOSIA, so I was thinking about, could this be a correlation in time that we're going to see maybe the new MedPods during this Pluto transit? So let's say from now until 2044, you think that that would be something realistic?
I asked her about this, and I was even asking, like, okay, when do you think, like 2030, we could have this or something like that? And I remember she said there's no data to indicate a time frame. That was her answer. So I don't see in their discourse, in our conversations, anything that would indicate them knowing when specifically that would happen, and if it happens anytime soon, because actually there is still a lot of work to be done, and the Kabbalah needs to be removed first, and all that, and there's still a lot of work to do with that on that level, because no need. They told us we're not going to be giving blueprints and models and technology to the people, and especially if it's already here. They said it's already on Earth in many circles. It's just that it's not revealed to the public, or it's being shut down, etc., taken away. They said we are not going to be revealing any blueprints, because it basically would be feeding the cabal. It would be giving, enriching the technology that the Vatican has. It wouldn't be enriching us. It will be just giving the enemy more information. And what needs to be done is to take the enemy away first, take them out.
And one question on that before we move forward here, that wasn't in our list, GOSIA, and I'm just curious if you have had these conversations about the death of the dollar and how the dollar and the financial system as a whole is part and parcel here what holds down this matrix of control on the planet, but it also holds down all of the secrecy. So you just mentioned these technologies that are already on Earth that are segregated to only one portion of the population, where the rest of us have no clue about this. Do you think that in this transition here from the death of the dollar to perhaps these more holistic societies, the ability for them to continue this secrecy and to hide these technologies is going to wane, and this is where we're going to see this huge maybe innovation boom for humanity? Does it come from that, or does it come perhaps more from a big light bulb moment of consciousness for the planet, where we all decide together that we don't care about these rulers, we are going to make a way for ourselves, and then suddenly they can't control humanity anymore in that sense? What are your thoughts on that?
Can you just summarize the question in one sentence, please, again?
I'm downloading this live. I'm not sure if that made sense. So do you think that, do you think that the technology that it's all hidden right now will come out because of the death of the dollar, the dollar being their mechanism to suppress all of these technologies with the bribes and all of these things that they do, for example? Or does it come from the other way, the frequency and humans raising their consciousness and busting through all of that secrecy and coming up with all of these inventions basically on our own, maybe as perhaps part of our soul missions here moving forward for the rest of us who are not being part of the die-off here?
This question transcends my capacity to answer thoroughly, I think, but I would go with the second one. I think my intuition tells me that it's the second one.
Okay.
So that's what's going to make it happen. Yes, from everything that I know, talking to them and how I perceive their reality here. And it's connected anyway.
Okay. I love it. Okay. And I apologize because I'm funny enough, for that particular question, I was thinking about that in like geometry, and I had to translate in French and then say it in English to you guys live here. So it's kind of a weird question.
Yes. Okay. But that's why also the answers are not in my verbal level yet, to be able to be transmitted properly. I will have to think about this.
Think about this. Yes, me too. I'll download more of the words here to educate myself first, and then have more conversations with the audience.
And then I will need to download the answers. Yes. And then transmit that.
Julie, next question on Pluto entering Aquarius.
The healing modalities. I would like to just mention that because Julie, you were talking about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you have any question about that? Because we didn't finish with that healing thing yet.
I think on my part, I was finished. Did you have something else to add to your response?
Yes, because JC asked me this question by email about about the DNA. Is it
Right.
being upgraded, or will it be upgraded? So there is a lot of talk about this DNA upgrade and all that. So I was asking Yasky about this because it does smell a little new agey to me. That whole collective DNA upgrade is supposedly is something done to us from the external source. Again, something deterministic, something we are supposed to be just waiting for. So Yasky here explains there is some truth to it, but not in the way people perceive it. It's not as people will be moving into this 5D, whatever, DNA crystalline form as something done to them in a deterministic way. It's as if everybody's DNA will change, like it or not, will receive this upgrade, and it has nothing to do with having to do any work on ourselves and expanding ourselves. It's just gonna be done like kind of like this ascension thing. Ascension is gonna come, and we don't have to worry about anything. Just wait. So that's she's explaining that it's not going to be done this way. It's not happening this way as something exterior happening to us as on a DNA level. Here, I just want to also fast interjection. There is this video we made on DNA, and because people think that as we expand and ascend, we will be transitioning into this crystalline silicon-based bodies. And Minerva Svaru, that was one of the first videos we made, is explaining actually this. Okay, so let me just put this in a chat very fast.
Oh, I have it here. I have it here. I have it here. This one here.
Sorry, I just put it in the chat right now.
Okay, it's on the screen now also for people here.
Oh, yes, very good. Okay, so we're not going to be changing to these crystalline silicon-based bodies as people think. Here, Minerva explains. So anyway,
well, that's like an energy, if I understand correctly, and it's what I believe too. It's let's say an energy that's going to be available if your consciousness is ready to use that tool and do the work yourself, right?
Yes, exactly. So when it all depends on your own personal growth, expansion of awareness, you becoming a 5D person. As they always explain, you are 5D. You don't live in a 5D. You're not going to receive 5D as some sort of an external factor coming and attached to you and you becoming 5D. As Yasky always says, people have to be the 5D new world they want to live in, not wait for it to happen, because then they'll be waiting for it forever. So as you expand and ascend in consciousness and awareness, you become that 5D. And with that, your DNA changes, because you change your DNA being that 5D light being person. The DNA doesn't change you. So there is not going to be no outside exterior DNA upgrades to change who we are. It's the reverse. We will be the ones making the change. So with us growing and expanding, we'll be changing the DNA. The DNA is always a reflection of who we are. So the DNA will change according to how we change. The DNA, as she says, is only reflection and materialization and manifestation of the being. So now what happens when enough people on Earth ascend, let's call it that way, in consciousness, expand, then the average existential frequency of the planet will change as well. It will go a lot higher, and it will cause a chain reaction because of the dominant frequency. They always use this.
Will reach a critical mass.
Yes, yes, with the dominant frequency. So from that angle, everyone will be affected. Yes, in a positive way, but it's because of the movement of souls from within, not because of some kind of exterior upgrade. The ETs will be coming here and upgrading everybody. Now, just a short comment on the side, it doesn't mean that those individually done upgrades on the human DNA don't happen. Yes, you explained it does happen on an individual level here and there. And there's nothing new about that. It has been always done. Most abductions are actually for that.
Right.
And here she's explaining that, for example, because I asked, in what cases is it done? Okay, for example, they might abduct a person and they might do a little tweak to their memory. DNA memory is very related to get them back on their track. For example, they must do something important, something they decided for themselves before entering into physicality, because the life on 3D is very distracting, and people can get lost, even though I don't believe in getting lost. I always say that for me, there's no detours, it's all experiences. But anyway, that's what she said. So when that abduction, that DNA tweak happens, it's like a temporary fix, or like a setting the subject's memory back to what it should be, so that person can continue to do whatever they have to do. It doesn't happen with everybody. It's done individually. And I don't have the details about how, on what basis they choose these people. I don't know. So, but that's a separate story. Collectively, it's not going to happen, that DNA upgrade on a collective
There's
basis.
no solar flash that's going to upgrade everybody.
Okay, well, let me interject there also. So I totally
Yes.
agree with you on this concept here. We are going to be that change. We have to be that change by the nature of our all existence. So I understand that. But at the same time, like you just explained, we have individual instances here for abductees, experiencers who have this little tweak done to them depending on their specific mission. Either it's to bring them back on mission. And when you suggest that, bring them back on mission, it basically lets you know that perhaps something thwarted that individual from their mission in the first place. And so this is where I want to bring the sun in just briefly here. In the series that Julie and I are doing with Jay Widener, Nostradamus and the Vortex of Time, we did talk about Fulcanelli, the cycles of cataclysms on the Earth, and how some of the regressives on the Earth absolutely fear anything that could come from the sun. And it's not because it's bad for us necessarily, but it's bad for them. So on one hand, yes, they're not, so no external force is going to come and usher us into 5D. We have to make that. But is there also regulating force in universe that might come in also to level the playing field, where, for example, if we saw some activities from the sun or solar flares, we could remove parts of the AI, so that if humans go into our 5D, we wouldn't be so infected perhaps with AI or infected with regressive implants. Where does that come into play here, the leveling of the playing field, without necessarily giving us the keys to the whole kingdom? What are your thoughts?
This is a very complicated subject, because, as you know, this goes back to the whole federation thing and how much they allow, where are the limits and all that. So they're playing, they are there. I think that the limits of what they allow are very different to how we would like those limits to be. So it's a very, very delicate, politically even, in space subject. So they wouldn't allow certain things, like, for example, so-called nuclear disasters, things like that, even though we already made a video about that too. And we actually explained that it's not nuclear, it's actually energy weapons. That's another topic. But they wouldn't allow anything like that. So the leveling is happening, but only in a very, very drastic situations. Other than that, they are letting things evolve as a bulk of a humanity we create them. So I don't know if I explained that properly. So I don't think there is a lot of leveling here happening of the game, and that's when the Taigetans come in and they don't agree with the federations. Varunians don't agree with the federation. I think they believe that it's too much going on. What's happening here?
And that's a big source of controversy, of course, here in contactee land, in terms of the Federation and their role. But if you look at it objectively, one could come to the conclusion that, yes, they've let a lot happen here, and they haven't done much in terms of leveling the playing field. Now, that could be just from my perspective as a human, as I see it, but that's, we're allowed to have each our own perspective. And one is just as important as the other here, as we're having these conversations and trying to understand that. But that's not to say that in what you've just described now, there's an external force, as the Taigetan teams right now in here also trying to level up the playing field here by sharing some of this information with humanity. And at every step here, they're being thwarted in some cases here, of course, by the Federation.
But the element here that makes it so complicated for the Federation and for everybody involved watching this from the other side is that for them, the souls from the other side don't want that leveling up happening. We came here specifically for that, to figure things out from the inside and have a challenge. So we just made a video. Actually, I just made a video. My last video is why is Earth important to the extraterrestrials. So some of that is mentioned there. So it's just the perspectives change so much from here for us and how it is there. So the Federation could be viewed as regressive from one point of view, and then from the other point of view, they are just guarding the interests of the souls who want to have this difficult experience. So it's a complicated situation.
And difficult it is, of course. And in the last 3 years, we've all felt, yes, the complication of this experience that we've all chosen for ourselves here. Absolutely fascinating. Okay. Julie, was there anything more you think? We're already an hour and a half into it here in terms of the Pluto entering Aquarius. Any other questions you have for GOSIA here before we go?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, because we were talking about the Federation and the different perceptions of the Federation among different ET groups. And another thing that I think might happen during the Pluto in Aquarius transit is a lot of, I believe that's my personal opinion, a lot of disclosure about the ET groups that have been infiltrated, and maybe leading up to more real disclosure about our connection to ETs. Because in astrology, Aquarius deals with what's outside of us, so extraterrestrials, and Pluto is kind of a disclosure type of archetype. So does that make any sense to you, GOSIA?
Well, look at what Minerva's Baru is doing. I know it hasn't happened yet. The transit is beginning in March, but hey, Maris Varro is the off-worlder. She is a direct extraterrestrial person who is actually revealing, and actually she's one of her videos is how extraterrestrials live among humans. And she made, I think, 3 videos in that series where she's explaining how closely we are with them, how close they are to us, living in our society. So this is very much them disclosing their presence among us. So it may have something to do with that. Now, I asked Yaski about this, like, what does she think? Does this fit into that disclosure Pluto thing? Well, she says she didn't open that channel with that in mind, but it all aligns, because as she herself said, what goes on in the stars is a reflection of what goes on here. It's all related back and forth. So about the disclosure coming from the Cabal, for example, from the official sources, she doesn't give much meaning to that. I mean, she doesn't put much hope into that.
Yeah.
She said here, if they did want to disclose something ET, one second, knowing how they work, it would be something meaningless again, nothing life-changing. Another silly, the Pentagon is taking the video of 5 F-18 pilots of the US Navy very seriously. And all the UFO gurus going nuts over that.
Videos.
Yeah, so she's saying that it is them disclosing something on a specific date just because there is that transit. She says it is as vague as me saying that I will disclose important things only on my birthday. So it's like she doesn't give much hope into that them disclosing anything, but it could be, like we are saying, the ETs themselves, the ETs groups, more ET groups coming out and speaking out and revealing their presence, like what Maris Varu is doing. So it could mean that, yes.
Okay, let me bring that link up again for the folks who are asking in the live chat here. This is the YouTube channel, the Swaru official videos. Let me bring that link down for you guys, so you can go and check out that last video of why Earth is so important. And also, no, that's on GOSIA's channel, and this one here, ETs Among Us. It was the video I was showing there at the screen. And this whole idea also, though, of ET involvement, this has been in the WebBot data for many years, GOSIA, where Cliff saw in this predictive linguistic model that he has that we would have at some point a more open rapprochement or coming together with our star families. Now, it is, of course, happening on an individual basis. You're one example of many. But you just mentioned here that, for example, here, Minerva, these are new energies coming up here, new initiatives coming up here to share information, to get closer with humanity, this big rapprochement, perhaps, that Cliff was talking about. But in order for that to happen in earnest, we also have to get rid of perhaps some of the false gurus out here. And I bring this up here for conversation because in this last couple of months, we've been treated to this individual in some of these legal depositions where he's now basically saying that a lot of the things that he said were absolutely true on his episode on Cosmic Disclosure were in fact not, that they were all fabrications. And so part of this is in a way removing the enthusiasm to a lot of people to look at this subject matter, because again they fell flat and they're like, oh shoot, they're all lying to us again, so therefore don't look at GOSIA, don't look at this, it's all crap, right? So we have this feeling right now of sabotage for the humans who are trying to reach out to this rapprochement, to have a better understanding of their place in the universe. What do you make of these gurus now leaving the table in terms of maybe creating more seats at the tables for the Minervas and perhaps other team members here to really bring that rapprochement of humans and our star families more to the forefront here for humanity?
I don't know how seriously other ET races are taking this whole approachment, approachment, as I don't know how seriously they are taking this comparing to how Svarus are taking this. I don't really know how much they are interested in that. As we know, the Federation still wants to maintain this as a field game for the humanity. I think that when we are talking about them, that approachment to the humanity is not going to come from the Federation circles and from the Federation politicians and bureaucrats, because those still want to maintain this place as it is, which is an illusion game, us being isolated from other places, etc. That's the idea of this place. It's the only place in the universe that actually exists in these conditions. So that approachment, if it comes, it will probably come from some kind of rogue groups like us, like Taigetans and others, or other non-Federation races. Of course, there are many disagreements with the Federation, so others probably do want to come closer, but I don't necessarily see that happening. Like, I'm saying I don't see that such a great desire within the extraterrestrial races to come close to us. I know that this is what we feel, that we want that, and we might even feel that through channels like Mari or us. But I think these groups, those ET groups, are very few. I think in general, the ETs are not ready to meet us yet on that greater collective level. I think it's just done through individual ETs.
So similar to upgrading your DNA and moving into 5D, it's very much an individual path.
Yes.
Right, to have that rapprochement perhaps with your own individual star families. That's interesting. But similar, yes. GOSIA, I think you and I have talked about this probably on the first channel, where we have guides, some people call them angels, who help us along the way as we grow as humans. And sometimes we understand through shamanic experiences that we need to do cord cutting with the people around us who no longer serve our frequencies. And so that's difficult for some people to do. Some people get into the guilt of doing that process of cutting people, but we come to understand that getting rid of those older energies that no longer serve you makes way for these new energies to enter the room, right? This is where I was leading into in this whole idea, and I'm just giving one example here on the screen. I don't mean to bash on the particular individual, but this whole idea of these false gurus that are out here to perhaps how do I say, sullying or muddying the waters here in the authentic human attempt to try to understand our place in the universe and our rapprochement with our ET families. In that sense, does that make sense to you here, that from these energies, or perhaps from our own discernment, we need to start doing cord cutting and being more honest with each other here to do a cleanup in this community and this particular narrative also, so that we don't get trapped in those old energies and paradigms? What would you say on that?
Yes. It also fits with what with the video that I made some time ago about the CIA infiltrations into the UFO circles and all that, because I think those groups, the Kabbalistic groups, the controllers, the regressives, the CIA, whoever, they know that sooner or later there will be some ET groups who will want to authentically come close to us and reveal maybe more information. So they kind of have muddled the scene right away even in advance before, to make it more difficult for the authentic ET groups to come close to the humans, because as you said, the humans will be left so tired and so confused. I see some people so confused that they just like want to leave the whole scene. I'm just done with this all. You all suck, you're like, and I understand that. I would probably feel exactly the same way. It's very difficult for people to navigate all this and to discern. But and it's been done on purpose by the controllers. It's been infiltrated on purpose to make it so much harder for the real groups, ET groups, to even want to come close, because they will have to walk so hard through all these false people and groups and stories. There are just so many false stories out there, and I'm not the one to point out who is false, who is not. Again, it's for the people to decide. I know it's kind of maybe it's copping out, chickening out, but I just feel it's not our role to do that. Again, it's people deciding things on their own and not looking for any external guidance. In the end, it has to be them. Even though I know it sounds difficult, and it is difficult, but that's how it has to be. But be brave. And like you said, JC, I mean, for me personally, it's very easy to cut off the ties. If I feel I have to detach from a certain group or a person, the country, job, anything, I do it very fast. I change the chapters very, very easy, and I go with what my energy tells me to do.
Wow, beautiful. Okay, hold on a second here. There's a comment that says, wow, I'm listening while cooking. I'm going to need to replay later in my quiet place. Mind blown. Yes, me too. I'm going to re-listen to this episode. So much in here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. If you like this content, yes, please hit the like button. And please also make sure to go subscribe to both GOSIA's channel here on YouTube. And while I'm there, GOSIA, can you ask maybe Matthias, if he's still in the chat, to give us the link to that CIA infiltration video? I was looking for it here in the search. I couldn't find it.
He is outside with my dog. I can help you. Maybe if Julie wants to comment anything, I will go look for that video.
Okay, very good.
It was on another channel, yes. GOSIA, yeah, because I remember it.
It's true, but I made two parts. I made several parts. A Cosmic Agency 2. If you look at the Cosmic Agency 2, that's when that video, problematic video is. I put it there just in case if they delete it.
Yes, I know. We're all at danger here of this censorship. Yes, and also before I forget, also please do go and subscribe here to my lovely co-host, Julie at Maison Jupiter. You can find her here on YouTube. And there, Julie, also, let's talk about this Nostradamus and the Vortex of Time next episode that's coming up this Thursday while GOSIA is looking for the link. What are we going to be focusing on this Thursday episode here with Jay Weiner?
Lots of interesting stuff. We're going to talk about, I did a lot of research with that episode, so I think it's going to be very interesting. We're going to talk about the United States, the prediction that Nostradamus did especially for the United States, and we're going to correlate it with what's going on in the news. So I think you don't want to miss this one. This is going to be a good one.
Okay, I'm excited for that. GOSIA, did you find the link?
Yeah, I sent it, but I don't know why it doesn't show up as links. I sent it to you in a private chat.
Okay, let me see if I can.
You want to publish it?
Let me see if I can open that up. I think I have it. Yes. Okay, that's the right one. Let me see if I can bring it up to the main group audience window here. So yes, CIA infiltration, exopolitics group, CIA infiltration, Athena and Yazi Swaru. Okay, so Cosmic Agency 2. That's why I couldn't find out the first one. Okay, so let me bring that link also to the live chat. I think it's really important for people to watch this.
Yeah.
As we were all called to maybe revisit those people and the people who have been in the community and to shed maybe more light, more discernment on the situation. Not to destroy, and that's not my point here. My point is to catapult us into a higher learning. And sometimes in order to do that, as we just said here, we have to cut away some old energies, some old frequencies to make way for the new stuff to come in. So again, I'm just trying to build the community's ability here to have these conversations. Speaking about that, so 2-3 comments already tonight, having some issue with my talking about Doreen Dautin. And somebody just said, "Hey, JC, why do you promote such a divisive individual?" Well, that's perhaps from your point of view, and that's okay. We all have different points of views, and that's the whole point of Beyond Mystic. And Gosha, Julie, and I are not strangers to having difference of opinions, and that's the whole point. As humans, we have to be able to share our differences of opinions and share and learn together. Because if we create these echo chambers, we're missing the point. So if you don't like Doreen Dotan, don't watch Doreen Dotan. But the point was there, she brought in parts of the information here to this conversation, and I think they're valuable nonetheless, regardless of the personality of bringing up the information. I think that's very important also to make that distinction between the individual, their personality, and the information that is being discussed. Just thought I'd put that out there. Okay, Julie. Man, this is complicated sometimes. Anything else on Pluto before we go? Or have we done the...
I think we did it all. We went through all questions.
Okay, very good. So let me bring it back to you then. In your conversation and preparation for this show with your team, Gosha, is there any other selling points that we forgot to ask you some questions about that you want to share with the audience before we go? All right, let's start with those.
Oh, well, no, I just want to say that there are other questions that you sent me, and we haven't had a chance to go into it, but I think we covered the most important ones. Like, for example, you were asking me about, well, I think I didn't answer about the die-off. The die-off is the first, it doesn't mean anything negative. The Pluto is not a destruction of anything negative, so don't worry about that. And it could relate to the papayas things. That's all she said on that subject. But there are other questions that you sent me, like, for example, I'm not going to answer now. Don't worry. I just want to say what questions you sent me, and then I will cover that in my video. Okay.
Okay. Very good.
So you were asking me about, for example, the Saturn entering Pisces. You were asking me about that. Weakening of the immune system. The Pisces could mean that. Okay. You were asking me about the universal basic income. You were asking about the nodal axis changing to Aries, Libra. About how people becoming more individualized. Okay, and then you were asking about the Cabal as well, how the Cabal hacked the reincarnation cycle. Anyway, I'm just reading this to let people know that.
So just to let you know, folks, of course, we, Julie and I were so excited to have this conversation with Gosha, and we didn't realize how big our questions were for one episode. So perhaps, as Gosha is suggesting, there's enough there for a part 2 to this. And God willing and Gosha willing, perhaps we could schedule another one here, maybe the next little while, to go through all of this. And of course, you can go and check out the subsequent videos on Pluto that Gosha is going to be producing here on her YouTube channel, the Cosmic Agency Part 1 of the YouTube channel. Okay. In closing, I guess, let me ask you first, Julie, for the people who are starting at this, they're looking at this, they're having the bigger understanding that we are perhaps the mirror looking at the mirror. So that whole theory there in terms of astrology, depending on what direction you're coming at from, we are all, as Gosha was saying, tasked ourselves to move into a higher frequency. And in some cases, some people are more predisposed to do that. In some other cases, they get, for example, boosts or codes or hints, as you said earlier. Perhaps they'll use plant medicines to get there. In some other cases, they'll look at some older texts on how older civilizations got to enlightenment. What would you share with the audience members? I know astrology is a big passion of yours. You're having this next decode here with Meg coming up soon. But why is astrology important for now, at least for some segment of the population, and to get a better understanding of their place in the universe and really go back to the core of what their mission is right now? Because that's really what it's all important right now. We all need to be on mission. Or as Gosha said in one of her videos, it's all hands on deck right now. And I think the Tagetans would agree with all of that. Why do you think astrology is one of those tools here for the audience members?
Well, personally, when I learned more about astrology, it made me feel a lot more understood and quote unquote normal, because sometimes you realize that you're different from, let's say, the majority of people around you, and you question yourself, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I acting this way? why am I not fitting in the same structure as the rest of the people? Why am I unhappy because I'm trying to live the same life that they're living and it's not working for me? So I think astrology has a lot of answers about that. And it's explaining through the 12 archetypes and which archetype is going to be activated in what sector of your life. It holds a lot of answers to why, first of all, you're drawn to those things and those topics instead of those topics, and those persons instead of those persons. So I think it has a lot of answers. And personally, it also made me realize how we're not built all the same way, and it made me a lot more tolerant to other people. So understanding that they hold maybe more of this archetype and that archetype, and that's okay. I'm not trying to change them. So for me, it was a big revelation in having more harmonious and understanding relationship with other people also. And there's a few key points in astrology that are helping you to understand more what gifts you came here on Earth with, and how are they going to help you with your life mission, and what kind of archetypal theme has to do with your mission. So I feel like astrology can be a great tool in order to have more awakening and move even more towards your life mission.
And before I ask the same question to Gosha, and maybe last words of wisdom before we go from both Gosha and her team, Julie, talk about what we have here on the Beyond Mystic Academy in terms of psychic superpowers and adding back those to your mission, but more specifically also here the idea of past lives. Now, as humans, we don't have the luxury of knowing our third last past lives like the Targaryens do, but talk about how maybe understanding where those were enables you to understand why you have certain blockages today to reaching that north node into your particular mission in this incarnation, and how this workshop can help them.
Yeah, so in astrology, there's a couple of points that's connected to your past lives. So it helps you understand kind of the major themes around your past lives and what you're trying to do different in this one. So we made the workshop, the Psychic Superpower Workshop, with that in mind. We're looking at your moon sign and what you will have to overcome as a shadow work, according to your moon sign archetype, but also your moon in astrology is related to your psychic gifts. So working on your shadow part is going to help you unlock even more psychic gifts. So I feel like that's a very interesting one. And also the moon can relate to past lifetimes. And Sophie also made a course on past lives. So there's a guided meditation that you can listen more than one time. Also, she talks about your south node in astrology, where it is in your birth chart, and what kind of hints you can have according to your past lives to kind of release some patterns that you're going over and over in lifetimes to lifetimes. So you can really make different choices in this one and go ahead with your personal evolution.
All right. BeyondMystic.academy, guys, if you're interested in taking a look at all of those offerings there. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. Gosha, first of all, a big thank you again for being on the show today. I really love these conversations. You did absolutely well. And just judging by the comments, everybody really loves you. So anytime you want to come back for part 2, of course, we'll put it on the schedule anytime. Anything you want to share right now? Like, we are, as humans, at a critical point, not just from the astrological standpoint, that kind of gives us hints as to what energies are going to be impacting us in these changes that are before us, starting as early as 2023 here. But what do you share with your audience members right now? There's a lot of fear out there still, and we need to come together to kind of reboot from that trauma of the last couple of years and to really be on mission and hit the ground running here into creating this earth that we want, this future that we want for ourselves, void of these overlays of all of these old matrices of controls. How do you encapsulate that? What is your advice here to the audience members? And your dog wants to say hello. Hello.
Yes, I think she does. Yes. I think she's ready for some words of wisdom here.
Okay.
You want to say something? Something wise? Something wise. Maybe this is kind of like a message for me, what to say, her coming here, because, she's so playful. and she's so spontaneous, and she just lives in the moment, and she just becomes so excited about things, and she's very explorative, and she just enjoys every single detail around her. She stops and she smells every single branch on the tree, and we actually like becoming inspired by her and from her, just observing how she interacts with her environment and her life. So her coming here just at this exact moment in 2 hours of our conversation, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it's just her interjecting her essence here, and at this exact moment when you ask me for wisdom, you know. So I know that people have been living in fear and, you know, these dire you know, ideas about what might happen, but let's just I'm going to keep it simple this time, okay? Let's just not forget about continuing to be excited about life, and that's that. And there's still excitement, and there's still beauty, and there's still fun to have, and that's where you have your frequency, and that's where you stand, and that's where you maintain that frequency no matter what happens. So go around and play with snow, you know, jump, climb the tree, and be happy, because in the end, that's what maintains the frequency. That's what's going to upgrade your DNA, and that's what's going to cause that chain reaction to include everybody else with you, with us. So don't give in. Don't give in to any of the agendas. They are afraid. Pluto is coming, Aquarius, and all that. So we have the support.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so yes, have fun, and if you want to join more of this incredible excitement, you can do so, of course, here on the Cosmic Agency on the YouTube channel, and you can find Julie also here on Maison Jupiter, and a couple of new shows coming up here also on Beyond Mystic. So if you haven't seen the schedule there, please do go and check it out and subscribe if you haven't already. This is our third attempt here at thwarting, you know, the censorship machine here on YouTube. So I really do appreciate all of your support there. And of course, this was a Cosmic Agency from the viewpoint of off-worlders here in terms of their perspective with astrology. Thank you so much.
Just a final comment. I didn't include every single answer to your question, so I'm going to include that in the video. I'm going to make a video about Pluto, and then the next video will be with all these questions and answers that you asked that I haven't had a chance to read. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that. Okay. And thank you, Julie. It was amazing because you filled all these different, you know, holes that I would never be able to fill with this whole subject of astrology, and you complemented so much, and you gave so much more texture to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Gosia. I'm very happy that you answered our question. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Julie, and thank you so much, Gosia. Merci beaucoup à vous deux. Muchas gracias, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining here today. I'm Jean-Claude at Beyond Mystic. I love you guys, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Merci.